If you're of a certain age like myself, then you most likely have fond memories growing up visiting arcades. For me, I got one solid week a year where our family would head off to the nearest coastal town, and inevitably in the UK it was pouring down the rain for that week in July, so I'd head to the nearest arcade and fill my time with games of Space Invaders, Track and Field, WrestleFest and so on. Even now I look back at those times with a magical special feeling, and that's exactly what 1980X is going for. 1980X on the Nintendo Switch is a short game. If I hadn't run into issues at one point, then I would have probably completed the game well inside 90 minutes. There is a wafer-thin story running through the game about a boy growing up in an unhappy home environment and after stumbling on a local arcade, plays games as a means to escape. But these 60-second long cutscenes between bouts of action, whilst beautifully drawn, animated and soundtracked, are a little bit on the nose and a bit too obviously downbeat, and also didn't really hook me in any way. So what the game is left with is 5 short recreations of popular 1980s video games, some better than others. So I thought for the rest of this review I'd give you a quick overview of each game in order of which I enjoyed them. It should be noted that once you've finished a game, you can go back and play it again at any time. Okay, so in last place, the game I enjoyed the least is actually the 4th game you unlock, and that's called Shadow Play, which is an auto-running platformer, a genre I'm pretty sure I never saw in arcades, or one that became particularly popular until the 2000s, but there you are. You play a ninja running through a forest, taking down other ninjas and demons. The artwork here, like most of the other games in the package, is absolutely stunning, but the gameplay is infuriatingly hair-pulling, and at points I thought I'd never get past sections to complete this game. The controls just feel a little bit off, and I lost count the amount of times I died because a jump didn't register or I slid instead of jumping down. You also can't regain any of the 5 health blocks that you start with, so if you take a couple of unfortunate early hits, you can pretty much write off the run and have to restart from the beginning. An annoying game that I didn't feel fit the story very well like the others do, and I just never want to play it again. Thankfully, the quality of Shadow Play as a game is way worse than the next entry on the list, and things generally improve from here on in. The 4th game I enjoyed is the 2nd that's unlocked, and that is one called Out of the Void, a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up in the vein of R-Type. Again, I found this one a little bit frustrating at times, but it just took a little while to learn the attack patterns of the enemies, and this at least felt like a legit copy of a real 1980s arcade game. Whilst not as visually nice as Shadow Play, it still features some nice pixel artwork and a cracking soundtrack, and I wouldn't have minded this one being expanded out in the end and made into a fuller experience. Third on the list, and actually the last minigaming experience, is a game called Kill Screen. Now this is another slightly odd choice for something that's meant to ape a 1980s arcade game, as it's a vector art dungeon crawling RPG style game. I definitely don't recall anything like this in the arcades, but there we are. I started off hating this at first, and it was probably suffering from following Shadow Play and all the rage I'd pent up from that experience. But after a few defeats I got the beat of the game and ended up very much enjoying what they'd done. I won't spoil anything, but this does help give some context to the overall story of 1980X once you beat the final boss. Gameplay simply involves you moving a step at a time through a Tron-like dungeon, fighting off robots, cyborgs and jellyfish in turn-based battles by picking an attack type and keeping an eye on your health bar. Each enemy is weak to a specific type of attack, and it's pretty fun working out what those are. Second on the list, and the 3rd game you unlock, is an outrun-like experience called The Runaway. I liked how this integrated into the overriding story, and there's a delicious twist in this game that I'm gutted didn't happen more in the other games. This is the closest of the arcade rip-offs, as you take your red sports car down twisting roads that wind through deserts and cities, avoiding traffic and racing to reach checkpoints before the clock ticks over to 0. Again, it feels like if developers Hybit Studios wanted to make this into a fully fledged Outrun clone, I'd be right behind it. This brings us to finally my favourite experience, and the first one you actually unlock in the game, which is the Final Fight Streets of Rage inspired Beating Heart. This is a beautiful side-scrolling beat-em-up and some of the nicest pixel art I've seen on the Switch, and if this was a full game it has the potential to be the best in the genre on the platform. It's a shame it finishes so quickly, although it does feature one of those 1980X moments in it which feels very fresh and unique. I love this, and I can see myself loading up 1980X from time to time just to have a blast on beating heart for sure. Now, it's probably a little unfair to bemoan how short these 5 experiences are, and hence 1980X overall, due to both its budget price and also you need to know what you're getting for your money here. This isn't supposed to be a 5-game compilation of full indie games, but the games themselves generally serve to push the narrative on and give you a flavour of hanging around arcades in the 80s. I did find the odd choice of genres for Shadowplay and Killscreen a bit disappointing when the 80s had classics like Pac-Man, Robotron, Arkanoid, Frogger and so on. It's not like there's a lack of choices, it was literally the boom time of arcade games. I wouldn't class 1980X as a game per se, consider it more of an interactive story experience and you probably won't be too disappointed. There is a lot to like in 1980X and the devs and artists are obviously very talented, and I wanted to score this higher, but the annoyances I had in Shadowplay in particular have really dampened the experience for me, and I'm going to be giving 1980X on the Nintendo Switch a score of 7.5 out of 10. It's incredibly short with virtually no replayability. I do wish each minigame had its own high score table to give you a reason to replay a few more rounds, but I can perhaps see why that's not possible. Okay, well, thanks for watching the review, guys. I hope you did enjoy that. Give me a thumbs up and please subscribe if you're new here. Really appreciate that. Please drop me a comment below what you think of this one. I really do think this one is for retro game fans. And if you fancy a quick story mode over a wet weekend, then this is one to pick up, I would say. Okay, thanks again for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.